Greetings, and welcome to this brief introduction to Plato's Republic, Book 1. I'm Keith Whitaker. Plato's Republic is a dialogue narrated by Plato's teacher Socrates. As narrator, Socrates sets the stage and speaks all the parts, even providing his own commentary here and there. The second word of the dialogue is yesterday. So Socrates narrated this dialogue the day after it took place. To narrate the entire dialogue takes about 12 hours. Trust me, I've read it aloud and timed it. Socrates clearly has a lot of stamina and quite a memory. He never says to whom he's narrating it. It's hard to imagine anyone who would listen for that long. Was it a young Plato? My own guess is that Socrates is narrating this dialogue to himself, to review the conversation in his own head and to hold on to the most important points. But what was so important about this conversation that Socrates spent nearly half a day having it and then half a day repeating it? That's the question of the Republic. This question appears all the more puzzling when we realize that Socrates did not choose to have this dialogue. He went down to the port of Athens, the Piraeus, with Glaucon, Plato's brother, to see a religious festival and pray to a foreign goddess. On his way back, he's accosted by several young men who practically force him and Glaucon back to their house to have dinner. Book 1 of the Republic falls into three main parts. First, Socrates' brief conversation with Cephalus, father of some of the young men and head of the household in which the Republic takes place. Second, his longer conversation with Cephalus' son Polemarchus. Third, the longest part of the book, Socrates' conversation with the foreign sophist or professor of wisdom, Thrasymachus. The theme of these three conversations is justice. But justice is not where the conversation begins. Socrates starts his conversation with Cephalus by asking him about old age. Cephalus says that old age can be scary. You start wondering if all those frightful tales about Hades and punishments after death might be true. Luckily for Cephalus, he's wealthy, so he can pay back what he owes to gods and men. He claims to be pious and just. Piety and justice are his themes, and his goal is eternal bliss after death. Socrates ignores Cephalus' words about piety and the afterlife. He focuses solely on justice. Cephalus defines justice as telling the truth and giving back what is owed. Socrates points out that Cephalus would not give back a weapon owed to a friend who's gone crazy. Cephalus laughs at this absurd thought, and he leaves the conversation to go attend to his sacrifices. Cephalus' son Polemarchus then inherits the argument from his father. He amends the definition of justice to giving to each what is fitting. Under Socrates' further questioning, Polemarchus claims that justice means giving benefits to friends and harm to enemies. Cephalus could look to law or custom to tell him what he owes others. What would Polemarchus look to tell him what's fitting? Knowledge, he says. But he has a hard time pinning down that knowledge. If it's knowing how to guard your friend's stuff, then justice is useful when the things you're guarding aren't being used. Someone who knows how to guard well would also know how to steal well, so the just man would then be the best thief. Polemarchus also admits that this knowledge might reveal that those you thought were friends are actually enemies, and vice versa. Finally, he agrees that since harm involves making something worse, justice should involve only benefiting, never harming. All in all, Polemarchus reveals an unflagging hope that justice will be good. It may even be a sort of super knowledge that makes every other knowledge or art good. Socrates labels it virtue. This lofty vision of justice causes Thrasymachus to burst into the conversation. He accuses Socrates of indulging in his customary irony, that is, of lying to his young friends. Socrates says, "Okay, Thrasymachus, you teach us what justice is." The professor of wisdom takes the bait. Justice, he announces, is the advantage of the stronger. By stronger, he means the rulers of city, the people who pull the strings. They know how to use the law to get the sheeple to do their bidding. Justice is obedience to the law, but it's bad for the just person. It's another's good, the ruler's good. Thrasymachus further insists that the true ruler is perfect at this art of ruling. He never makes a mistake. This insistence gives Socrates an opening. Socrates points out that all other knowers as knowers, such as shoemakers or house builders, serve someone else's good. That's why craftsmen get paid for their work. So too, Socrates argues, rulers must be compensated for the trouble of ruling others. Thrasymachus wants his perfect knower to be unjust and pursue only his own good, and yet also to seek publicity and fame and the hassle of ruling. Earlier, he demanded that teachers receive pay from students and that financiers receive praise from listeners. Likewise, he believes that this daring knowledge he calls injustice deserves some sort of reward. Despite his cynical words, he believes in a sort of justice. His attack on justice is confused. Still, Socrates does not win Thrasymachus over. Socrates reduces him to going along with the argument. With Thrasymachus in this state, Socrates piles justice with all sorts of praise as wisdom and virtue and the bond of any community, even a band of robbers. But Socrates recognizes how unsatisfying this conclusion is. He seems to have shown how good justice is without ever clearly defining what justice is. Nonetheless, Socrates seems ready to get up and leave. Why he stays for another 9 books worth of conversation is a matter of book 2. Here we can only say that Thrasymachus' criticisms of Socrates appear to have some merit. Socrates refutes none of his interlocutors. Cephalus left chuckling, believing that justice is being truthful and paying back your debts. Polemarchus didn't get a chance to explore his belief that justice is a virtuous knowledge of what's fitting. And Thrasymachus sullenly remains attached to his very fine answer that justice means stupidly obeying the law. What the conversation does reveal is that whatever it is, justice concerns your most important choices about how you live your life, that it claims to be very good, and that it also somehow bears on decent people's hope for eternal bliss. Exploring these claims and hopes remains the great task of the rest of the Republic. Thank you for joining this brief introduction to Plato's Republic, Book 1. If you've liked what you heard here, subscribe to the channel and suggest in the comments other philosophic works that you'd like to hear a brief introduction to. Thank you for joining.